the UK government has created a working group to come up with a new definition of Islamophobia following what was a biased parliamentary inquiry. It comes amid growing concerns that such a definition would lead to a crackdown on free speech in the UK. Join me now to discuss this and more, new Credlin regular, author Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Ayaan, welcome to the program. Terrific to have you, as always. This push for an official Islamophobia definition is about building a constituency to back it in, not actually about testing the merits of any definition, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. The Labour Party in the United Kingdom, as other centre-left parties in Europe with large numbers of Muslim immigrants, they've come to depend on that vote. And they have to give something in return for the votes they get. And what the Islamists want is to Islamize society. They want to introduce more and more Sharia-compliant rules. They want to convert non-Muslims. They've developed a well-coordinated victim narrative. And of course, they want to shut down the level playing field of ideas and arguments. And that's what Islamophobia really is for.
So what's the concern if there was a new legal definition?
The concern would be that you would not be able to criticize Islam at all. For instance, for someone like me, if I lived in Britain, I would not be able to talk about the gang rapes of the children who were subjected to horrific rapes by Pakistani and Bangladeshi residents. Criticizing that would be Islamophobic. If you wanted to talk about radical Islamic terrorists preaching in mosques, that would be Islamophobic. That would be prohibited by that. That would be a hate crime. If you want to talk about the spread, the Islamization agenda of the Islamists, the building of mosques and other infrastructure, all of that would be Islamophobic. And so they would be able to spread their influence and control of the constituencies where they outnumber the local people, and no one would be able to say anything about it because that would be Islamophobic and you would be fined or you would be imprisoned.
When I was in London, I sat down with Nigel Farage and he made this striking observation about the shifting demographics in the UK. Have a listen.
And if you look at the demography, the sheer number of young Muslim teenagers living in northern cities and towns who will be eligible to vote by the time of the next general election. Gaza Independents next time won't win 4 seats, they'll win 30, maybe 40, all coming straight from the Labour Party.
Do you think this is what's encouraging Labour, Ayaan?
That's absolutely what's encouraging Labour. So he has a point there. Just the sheer volume, the numbers of people who will vote for these Islamist agenda are getting bigger and bigger. And it's not just that. This is why it's so important to talk about the infrastructure of mosques and Islamic centers. That's where then these young people are corralled into and indoctrinated. So it's not just that their numbers are growing, it's also that they are voting for an agenda that is anti-British, and it's anti-women, and it's anti-Jewish, it's anti-Western. And so you're basically creating through, paradoxically, legal means, through the ballot box, a parallel society where Sharia is introduced and becomes ever more formalized. So we'll go from Sharia light to, a little bit harder and a little bit harder, and then you have the ghettos that are already formed will become formalized, and that's already happening in many countries, by the way.
I want to come back to this next week when I speak to you again, because I don't think Australians have a really good understanding of what Islamic structures are already in place, particularly legally, in the United Kingdom. But before we go, I've got to get a comment from you about the recent German elections, because there was a massive surge of support there, not just for the centre-right parties, but for a party out further on the right, the Alternative for Germany Party, AFG. Was this a referendum, do you think, about immigration in Germany?
So So Germany has been dealing with a lot of immigration from Muslim-majority countries, from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria in 2015, and so on. They've also been dealing with a lot of crime, and in particular also a rise in terrorist activities. And Germans have been voting for the closing of their borders. They don't want any more immigrants, and I think what they want really is to assimilate the immigrants who are already there. And so what you see is a disconnect between the German elite on the one hand and the German citizens who are voting for the closing of borders and less immigration. And that's what's making the AfD party bigger and bigger through every election.
All right, we'll come back to, as I said, the UK Sharia structures next week. Ayaan, great to have you on the program.